I'm Dan Smolin. I built a successful executive career in marketing and communications before becoming a top headhunter and founding my own executive search firm. Now get this, every day, mainstream media runs stories in which old school bosses and thought leaders frame your work and workplace issues in ways that are often divisive and unmeaningful. And that's just crazy. The time has come for you to answer the question, what's your work fit? So that your work and career fit who you are, how you want to live, and what you want your lasting contributions to be. What's your work fit? It answers your questions and tackles the issues that keep you up at night about advancing your career in this time of workplace revolution. So let's get started. Hey, good day, everyone. Dan Smolin here. Thank you for joining us today across the U.S. and across the globe. I'm really excited about our show today. Really great lineup. Before we get to that, a little bit of self-promotion. We're looking for some sponsorship. So if you sponsor this show, you can lead a revolution. I can explain to you more about what I have in mind for promotion on the show. If you want to reach out to me at dan@dansmolin.com, we could set aside a time to talk and I can let you all know about it. Thank you very much. Well, I am happy to bring in our guests today. They are a wonderful husband and wife team, Amanda and Nick Huddy. Good morning, folks.
Oh,
Good
hi.
morning, Dan.
I hope you both are well. You're on the other coast, so props to you for getting up so early. Here's what we're teeing up today. Can I side hustle my work fit? Great topic. I have gotten a lot of people asking about side hustling and entrepreneurship, especially with this economy. Amanda Huddy, take it away. Can I side hustle my work fit?
Yeah, you can side hustle anything. I know I'm shaking my head no, and it's only I just get so excited. What a fun topic. Yes, you can side hustle anything. The sky's the limit, truly.
Nick, you helped bring her into this thing. Can you explain to me how you got Amanda, who was a corporate person, a corporate executive, a marketing executive? The thought of entrepreneurship was probably anathema to her. So tell the story about what brought you two together, because that's a great story, and B, how you guys developed a side hustle that became your business called Hudson Davis Communications.
Yeah. And we've actually just opened Hudson Davis Creative. So Nick is spearheading that. So the communication side handles all of our B2B, all of our PR, and Nick's side, Hudson Davis Creative Agency, will handle all of our production, media production, creative, ad campaigns, all kinds of stuff. So it's really exciting. I wasn't just like your traditional corporate girly. I was also like recruiting people into the corporate life. I was living with a friend at the time and I was like, you should leave, like come join corporate. So it was a lot for Nick to bring me over.
Well, let's tee up the story, because I had interviewed you a year or two ago on my old podcast, Amanda, and you told a really unbelievable, well, no, not really unbelievable, truly believable pandemic work story. You had been in corporate marketing at a co-location. The pandemic changed a lot of things for you. I'm wondering if you guys can kind of tell us how that happened and really what brought you together.
Oh man, Nick, are you okay if I kick that up?
Sure, you take it.
Okay. So corporate girly here, and we started working from home in the pandemic. And I just remember thinking like, this is just so for me, right? Before I was in a situation where I was working full-time in an office. I was at an organization that really fostered a remote culture. They were really international, and that just was for me. And then I joined this organization and they said, yep, you can work from home, remote. First day on the job, they went, no, that's not a thing. That's not a thing that we do here. And I was just devastated because it was so important to me. And I had asked about it as a part of the interview process. And so we started working from home in the pandemic, and I went, yep, this is where I thrive. I need to work from home. Except I hadn't had a desk or anything like that because it was supposed to be temporary. Do you remember that, when it was like supposed to be 2 weeks of working from home and that was
Right.
it? So I was working from my kitchen table, and when we discovered that this was going to be a much more long-term thing, I had an old desk in my closet, and I live in this kind of community of little townhomes. And I just popped onto our Facebook page and said, hey, you know, is anybody willing to help me build a desk? And I answered the door and Nick showed up. And that was it.
Really? Now, were you
That
in
was
the,
it.
so you were in
Yeah.
the same subdivision?
We were in the same complex of all things.
Wow.
We kept missing each other by seconds, for the last few years. And by the time we met up, I mean, we were great friends for a while before we even started, any relationship with each other. But it was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely phenomenal.
So Nick, I'm going to ask you, okay, because you strike me as, like me, an off the wall extrovert. Now I know Madame here is anything but. She's she's an inside cat, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've often heard about people who are introverted and are used to working at traditional 9-to-5 jobs is that the thought of being an entrepreneur, if they're introverted, terrifies them. So how did you get Girly here to embrace a more extroverted lifestyle and being as an entrepreneur?
That took some doing, I got to tell you, Dan. It was a lot of convincing. There was a lot of talking through what were the expectations, what were the downfalls of going this route. Amanda, when she was starting to get into this entrepreneurial spirit, was saying, unless I have a year and a half in my bank account or a year's worth of income in the account, I'm not going to go ahead with this. And there were all of these little barriers that she'd put up for herself to saying, well, unless I've got this amount of money, I'm not going to go ahead with it.
Right. Unless
I've got this assurance that, nothing's going to happen there, I'm not going to go ahead with it. And so there was this big back and forth that Amanda and I had gone through over the period of sort of trying to convince her and saying, look, this is a leap of faith that you have to take, and at one point you have to listen to your inner voice and say, well, where I am now is not working for me. Therefore, it's now time to take a journey to upgrade what I can upgrade so that it's going to benefit the way that I need to operate.
Yeah.
And so, that was quite a big idea to plant into Amanda's head, is to have that confidence to just take that first step. And, more often than not, you're never going to get those reassurances. You're never going to get anybody who says, all right, well, you've got a year's worth of salary in your bank account. I have not met a single person in my life who's got a year's worth of salary in their bank account ready to go. It just doesn't happen. In the same time, I don't know anybody who's got any insurances in business. It just doesn't happen.
So how did the idea of Hudson Davis Communications come about, Nick and Amanda? What was the pearl that you created in your mind to say, we can do this, we can do it independently, and help a lot of brands exceed their goals?
It was like an environment that got created, right? And we were kind of in this little like bubble. And there were a bunch of things that kind of all happened around the same time that were kind of out of our control a little bit, which is, looking back on it, I think, God, this was just like meant to happen, because everything was kind of working in our favor to kind of do this. And so one of the things, when you start thinking about, okay, maybe I'm doing this little thing on the side, or I know I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
One of the things that can really start to happen, that you can pay attention to, that's your little light that goes off, that goes, this is really like snowballing, or this really feels right, or there's a lot of things that are happening around this that are just starting to like really fit into place, and this feels really good. And that was a kind of a bit of a like a clue to us to go, ooh, okay, there might be actually something here. And what started to happen was, we were just having a lot more conversations with people. We were 2 years or a year into the pandemic, right? Because it was May 2021, March, April, May to 2021. We had been through a year of this, and I think people were starting to realize, oh, I need marketing in my business. Things have changed, and I think I need a new way to say this, or whatever. And we were having these very organic conversations with people. We were going, connection got lost.
Play through. We'll bring them back in.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll go upstairs. We'll bring them down here, whatever we need. And I just remember it was this environment. The second thing that happened was, I was still working my corporate job, and on the PR side, the executive vice president was on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I remember very clearly, it was one of the like last things that I did before I made the decision to let them know that I was going to be leaving, and I gave a month's notice so I could change my mind and all the things. And I remember he said in the interview that it was with Forbes, and they were asking him about his career and the regrets that he had. And he said, I wish I'd taken more chances. I wish that I had gone out on my own. I wish that I had taken more leaps. I wish that I had done more things for myself. I wish I had started my own company. And that, combined with Nick being a cheerleader and going, you're really good at this. You should be doing this for yourself. You're working for somebody else. You should be doing this for yourself. It was that, and those things, and these other people that we were talking to going, hey, I own a company. Would you consider doing that for me? And I'm going, no, I've got a corporate job, but I'd be happy to give you pointers. And Nick's on the other side going, no, you can charge for this. So there were really a lot of things that kind of happened that were outside of our control that really led us to go, okay, we're going to do this. And I remember I had a one-on-one with my boss. It was over the weekend. Nick and I went down to San Diego, and I remember thinking, I remember asking him out loud, what if I left my job? Like, what if I really did this? And he went, yeah, do it. And I went, okay, on Tuesday, it was a long weekend. And I went, okay, on Tuesday, when I have that one-on-one with my boss, I'm going to do it. And I remember I asked him to sit on the couch with me, and I'm like on my laptop, and Nick is on the other side of the laptop holding my foot. And it's just like, I'm here. I've got you. You've got this. And I let him know that I was going to be starting my own company, and I was going to be consulting. And they came back at me right away and said, whatever you're doing, we're a client. So we want to keep you around. And that's one of the things that, again, I look back on and go, if you've got momentum on something, the whole universe will be in your favor to get you to do this. And that's really how it was.
I want to interrupt and just shout out to my audience here. I got two really amazing guests talking about an incredibly in the moment topic of side hustles and turning those into a work fit. So if you got a question, put them in the comment thread and we'll ask them for you. Okay. So when you heard, not only do we love you and we wish you well, Amanda, but we'll be your client, what did that feel like to you?
A relief. I was prepared to take the leap. Nick had prepared me. We had had enough discussions. The big thing that I feel that I had that other people might not have is a support group, a real tight cheerleader system. I mean, everybody was just cheering us on. And everybody in our circle was going, you can't fail, you won't fail, nobody will let you fail at this. And so if you, as a person who's watching this, feel like you don't have that, or you don't have people, reach out to Nick and I. We will be your cheerleader system. Everybody deserves to do something that lights them up. that gets them up in the morning. And if that's right now your side hustle, or if that's something that you want to turn into a side hustle, like I say, and it's kind of a little bit crazy, but we've only got this one shot on a floating rock in the middle of space, and it's like, do it. There's only one shot at this.
How is it, and this question goes to both of you, how is it in 2022? Are there still client prospects out there who say to you, I didn't think I needed to market? And what do you,
Constantly.
and what do you say to them in response? Because Marcia and I, my wife, we hear that all the time. It's the field of dreams fallacy of operating a business. Build it and they'll come. They don't.
No.
And
No.
and that gets into an area. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but I want to get into this area that Nick is expert on, called demand generation. Nick, I want you to describe what that is and why it is important, especially for your clients and especially for ones that have brands that have yet to hit their scale path.
So really the process of demand generation is about exactly that. It's creating a demand as opposed to having a stationary marketing tactic in place. So I tend to use the analogy of two fishermen, both standing on the same side of a bank. The one has 20 rods all lined up in a row. They've got all their lines based in the water. As to, they've done their research. They know exactly where the fish are. But they put all 20 of these lines in the water there without a single piece of bait on the hook. Now you've got somebody else who's a demand generator who's going to run in between those lines. He's got a very light rod with just some very effective lures. And he'll go around pulling these fish out of the reeds and out of some pretty strange areas that you wouldn't expect them to be in the first place. And at the end of the day, the two fishermen are going to have a look at each other and go, well, the guy who didn't have any fish, didn't have any hook on his bait, he's sitting there having caught one dumb trout, a crab, and a boot. And on the other side is and a tire, And on the other hand, you've got this guy who's now come out with a whole bunch of fish with much fewer resources in the first place. And I think that's kind of demand generation in a nutshell. Is that it's a bit of guerrilla marketing. It's a little bit of it's a little bit of advertising wrapped up there. The whole idea is to appeal to the needs of your client.
Okay, so let me interrupt, because I want to bring it back to this side hustle idea. Somebody listening to us today has got an idea. All right, I'm gonna just bring it right up here. Here's my wife, Marcia. She's been doing vintage clothes for now 25 years, and it isn't until recently that she became a social media marketer. And as she says, I don't know what I'm doing, but she's trying things. So she's side hustling this vintage clothing business, which when she retires from teaching in a couple of years, will become a main part of her day. Not the only part. Hopefully she and I will be a part of our day together, not doing business, but this is going to be a part of her income stream. It's also going to be a part of her creativity. So for people like my wife, who are perhaps new to marketing and perhaps new to demand generation, why is this so critical to successfully scaling a brand new brand and perhaps turning that side hustle in my wife's dreams into a full-time gig once she retires?
So Nick, is it okay if I jump in? Because I've got something that
go for it.
So first things first, this is fantastic, and I hope she does it.
Thank you.
What you might initially think is, I'm going to target people who like vintage clothing. That's my market, right? And that would be traditional. You go out, you segment people who have interest in vintage clothing.
Right.
But what you're missing is, you've got a a product here that can really resonate with maybe people who are really interested in snowmen, or maybe they've got snowman collectibles, maybe they collect snow globes, maybe you've got people who really love sweaters, maybe it's that time of year where people are looking for Christmas sweaters to wear to Christmas parties and they want to be funky and cool, and they would love something like this. So to me, part of demand generation, rather than traditional lead generation, is broadening a little bit of that horizon of going, okay, there's this other audience that doesn't know that they need this thing, that I'm going to now go and show them that they need this thing, despite it not being right on their purview. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Go ahead, Nick.
Basically, what we do is we create a vacuum. Now, whether that be a vacuum between the client and the customer, or us and the client, we generate a space of demand, and only two things can fill that space of demand: a product or a client. And so, if you generate a need amongst your audience, or you identify a need, and all of a sudden now you have this niche market that you can appeal to, you can expand that market by adding on different parameters. So, for example, Amanda was talking about having people who are looking for Christmas gear and fans of vintage clothing.
Right.
I would cultivate a base of vintage clothing enthusiasts. You see? So I would go, instead of trying to market it over to an existing platform, I would try and create a smaller niche platform and then build up from there. So I would look at a product like this and go, all right, well, I need to create a vacuum for it. So where is the vacuum going to be? Well, right now there's two vacuums that need to happen. There's a vacuum between her buyer and Marsha.
Right.
And, there's another vacuum now between Marsha's supplier and Marsha.
Right.
So to first fill the vacuum between the supplier and Marsha, we need to look at what are Marsha's needs. Well, she needs a certain number of items in stock and able to move this around. She needs certain design styles. So that's answering Marsha's needs. Now, what are the needs of the client? Well, they're looking for vintage clothing. They're looking for something that's a little bit more whimsical.
Right.
So these are all the folks that we're now going to start cultivating that audience. So we're going to start social media campaigns. We're going to start promoting your wife's product, so that they can really get involved in it. They can start to get excited about it, and we'll put them in different scenarios that will up their level of want. That's a very kind of broad way of saying it, but that's really the basis of advertising. Is we're going to present them with scenarios that increase their want of the product.
So I want to describe what she's doing here, because this is, I'm sure you two have discovered this. So on the platforms where she sells, one of the big things now is live shows. I mean, you literally are broadcasting out to the world, just as we three are doing right now to the world. She sets up her phone on her tripod. She hits engage, and it's off to the races.
Yeah.
And my wife's a self-described introvert, even though she's got a drama background. But this is one of the most terrifying things of all. What do you mean I'm going to be on a live show? People are going to look at me? This is really a thing right now, Amanda, isn't it? I mean, if you're a brand, you're also an ambassador to that brand, and that may mean becoming an on-air personality, right?
I mean, it might. I'm not a proponent of asking people to do things that they're uncomfortable with.
Right.
And so if Marsha, yeah. But I'm also, and Nick and I are both very good at this, is there's always going to be some sort of medium area somewhere where you'll go, okay, I might be comfortable with this, but not that. So Marsha might be comfortable with pre-recorded things instead of live. And there's, ways to get around that if we really need video. We're kind of very much proponents of making everybody feel comfortable. However, there are things that you can do to foster an environment that would make you more comfortable or make you more presentable. And then, of course, for an organization, I mean, I'm telling CEOs all the time, CEOs, senior leaders, presidents, VPs, people are more interested in you as an individual because you're more scarce. When you're at the top of an organization, your availability is extraordinarily low, but the demand for your attention is extraordinarily high. You've got people asking you questions all day. And so the ability to connect with you as a CEO, whether it's via your LinkedIn or things that you're typing out, whether it's videos that you're putting, whether it's images, it's access to you that they wouldn't have, which is something that I think makes lives and webinars and webcasts and things like that so appealing. I mean, right now my calendar is booked out for 3 weeks.
Wow.
So people have the ability to interact with me one-on-one. You can come on here, you can ask me a question right now, where you now have to wait 3 weeks to get on my calendar to do that otherwise. So I think that it's such an appealing avenue that's really, really underutilized.
How much of the work that you do depends on people like my wife leveraging something genuine about themselves to enhance their credibility? I'll give you the particular. So my wife is a veteran school teacher. She teaches in public schools. She knows how to teach. She knows how to work with learning styles, right? Especially she works with gifted kids. So you can imagine, all these crazy personalities in one room. How important is that in a side hustle to making a side hustle into a successful business? That genuine nature of things.
I think in 2022 and in particular in 2023 and ongoing, we've had technology around long enough that, Dan, is it okay if I use curse words on the show?
We'll run with it. It's fine.
People can smell your bullshit. Yeah. Truly, people can smell your bullshit. Yeah. And so if you're not being genuine, I think people can tell. If you're in something just for the money, I think people can tell. But also, I think what makes things like what your wife is doing so great, and what makes things like the side hustle environment so great, in particular when things turn out really well, and then we've seen side hustles that are now unicorns,
right?
Is when you are passionate about something, when you love something, when it shows, right? So just as much as people can see your bullshit, they can also see your joy and your passion, and that's really attractive and appealing.
I think passion is the big important word there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why, Nick?
Yeah, you've got to be passionate about what you're doing, even in some small sense. If every time that I've seen somebody pick up a project that's purely based on income, it's never panned out well, because there's got to be something deeper than just looking for a paycheck. And I think this comes back to what you've been talking about your work fit. Right. Is it something that appeals to you? Is it something that speaks to you on an ethereal level, much more than just logical? Is that is that something that will drive you to try and succeed in that industry, or is it something that you're simply doing just to try and get by?
I also really strongly feel that people are unaware that if I like this very niche thing, there must not be anybody else who likes this very niche thing the way that I like this very niche thing. And that's simply not true, right? So if you are a collector of snowmen items, whether it's snow globes or things like that, you would be surprised how quickly and easily you could genuinely build a community of people who love snowmen, who also collect snow globes, who have snowman earrings and snowman sweaters. And you will find your community when you go looking for it. It's there. So a lot of people let this fear of like, nobody's going to want it, stop them. Or if I niche down too much, I'll never sell anything. And it's just not true.
You brought up the key hashtag of the day, which is community. 30 years ago when people started businesses, I can attest to this. You felt very much alone. You felt like it's all, getting friends and family funding, getting to an A round if you're, focused on VC. It's all on me. I've got to create all these relationships. I've got to do the Shark Tank selling. The interesting thing now, and it's not just Marsha and vintage clothing, I'm hearing this from other people. This sense of you can go to a community board in whatever industry you're looking to set your side hustle up in. Get on a Zoom call for 3 hours, meet amazing people who are in the weeds just like you, and together you figure stuff out. Right?
Yeah. Dan,
Absolutely.
One of the things that I am seeing that will explode in 2023 and 2024 is the concept of CaaS. So we've all heard of SaaS, software as a service, and this concept of CaaS, community as a service, was coined by someone on LinkedIn. I'll have to find out who it was, because I think I saw in a comment where she's like, I came up with this idea. That is going to explode. Communities are everything in 2023. You've got people who are building communities on Slack and then turning that into an app that then gets productized, and then that goes through around, right? You've got people who have built very, very engaging interactive communities on Facebook. One thing that I see that will be coming down the line is just like people are now looking to come in and buy up your Amazon store. If you've built one that's really, really big, people will be coming in, mark my words, Dan, you can, in 2023, when this starts to happen and you need to come back and point to it, you can point to it here. People will be coming in and buying up your community and then reselling it.
Oh Lord. Well, I guess that's a cautionary tale too, but to buy up to your community, that's a little frightening. I think what my wife really likes is that it's not governed by any overlord, if you will.
Well, what's interesting, and Dan, I think I messaged you offline about this a couple weeks ago, is I think the first instance that we've really seen of that is this whole thing with Twitter. It really feels kind of like that first instance of Elon kind of coming in and buying up this, this really tight place of where all these communities are. People build their communities on Twitter. And so I think we're going to see that in a much more applicable scale. And so the thing that we were talking about Twitter is I'm so excited to see the side hustles that come out of people being let go from their jobs at Twitter, and maybe they had a side hustle and maybe they'll turn it into a business.
Well, it's interesting you should bring that up. I got a message from Brenda, who is a Twitter expat, if you will, a Twitter escapee, who asked the question, "I love my husband. Do I really think I could side hustle with him? What's your secret sauce, Amanda and Nick?"
It's hard. It's definitely hard. And I think Nick and I are very much about transparency. So Nick, I'm going to be fully transparent here. We engaged in a third party counselor to help us navigate what that would look like. And we did it early. So really first kind of 6 months, we went, okay, this is going to be an interesting dynamic. Let's get somebody in here to really help us navigate this, because when you start a business, there are so many things that will come at you all at once. Right, and they are unrelenting, and it does not stop. So it will start coming at you within your first few weeks, and it's still coming at us today. And so I think that was something that we did that was so smart that I would do again over and over and over and over, is we had this person that was guiding us and reminding us when to separate business, when to, really do all of those things. So 10 out of 10 recommend that.
That is golden advice.
And I'm going to say on that, one of the most important things is to have diverse interests between the two of you and diverse methodologies. Because strange as it might sound, if you're both on the same page at all the same time, you're actually in the wrong book. You're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Because you need, and this applies to any kind of business partnership, not just between couples, but you need some kind of pull. You need some kind of tension. You need something to actually bounce off of. Otherwise, it's a piece of rope only works if it's got tension on both sides.
Mhm.
Ah,
Otherwise, you're just going to be dragging this one little, limp piece of cloth through the streets and then hoping that somebody's going to pick it up. You've got to be able to bounce ideas off of each other objectively. You have to be able to fight each other for what you think is going to be right for the business. And
Mhm.
these are things that you can't do if you're both standing on the same side of the wall.
Yeah.
I'm reminded because Christine McVie of Fleetwood Mac passed away, unfortunately, and I
Yes.
adored her.
Oh,
And I
gosh.
think about Fleetwood Mac because, oh my God, what a shit show that was, when they would be
Yeah.
in the recording
Yeah.
studio and all that tension. They
Yeah.
created some magic because of that tension. They at least
Mm.
knew how to work with each other enough.
Yeah.
As you said, the rope needs tension.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's a big difference as well between emotional tension and business tension.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Because you can be on the same side of the road emotionally. In fact,
Mhm.
I highly recommend that at all
Yeah.
times. Because that's really one of the greatest things about working with your partner and working in that sort of scenario is that you do have a cheerleader at all
Mhm.
times. You've got somebody on your side. You're in this together at the end of the day. But realistically, there are times that come through that you have to be able to make a decision.
Mhm.
And you have to be able to do what's right for you. You've got to be able to do what's right for your company that you've built. You've got to do what's right for your community.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so these things all come together in one big bundle. And you as a couple have to now navigate
Navigate it.
which of
Mhm.
those threads you can, which of those threads you can be on the same side and which you have to be in contest.
That is sage advice. Sage advice. We're running out of time here. I get to ask you now both. What's your work fit? What attribute, condition, experience, place, or state of mind makes work a part of your day doing many meaningful things and not just the all-consuming time suck of the day? So, Amanda, what's your work fit?
I needed freedom. I was I was like a caged bird in the corporate world, and the minute I got the sense that I had the freedom to run my day, the freedom to run my department, the freedom to really do as I saw fit. Now, that said, when I was in corporate environments where I did have freedom, so my last role, while there were certain things that weren't a good fit, there was a lot that was a really good fit. My boss let me do what I felt was best, and he gave me permission and budget to do it. So for me, freedom is the fit. Once I have the freedom, I can make the rest work.
Really interesting. How about you, Nick? What's your work fit?
I kind of run on two. I work on flexibility and balance.
Ooh, okay.
So for me, I need the flexibility to be able to work on different projects of different industries and different, basically different designs entirely. And on the other hand, I need the balance to be able to work on all of those projects at the same time effectively. So, for me to be stuck behind a desk and only be able to work on one task at a particular time is really it's a waste of my ability to be able to work on different things, and it's torturous to me because it doesn't give me that kind of spark that I need to keep on going. So really, to have that flexibility, to have that balance between the two, for me, I feel invincible in that scenario. I feel like there's no problem that I can't solve.
That is wonderful. Amanda Huddy, Nick Huddy, my friends, wonderful guests that you are. I adore you too. I thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope we can get you back on to continue this and other discussions. But before we depart, how do our friends out there across the globe reach out to you so that they can learn more about you and perhaps engage with you to help them with their businesses and maybe those budding side hustles that are going to turn into growing businesses?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. You can find me, Amanda Huddy, on all the things. I think on Instagram, I might be Real Amanda Huddy, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all the things. And then our website is HudsonDavisCommunications.com.
And then on the B2C side, on the creative area, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, most of the bigger platforms under Nick Huddy, and you can find online at hudsondaviscreativeagency.com.
Well, folks, thank you so much. May great good things happen as a result of you being on What's Your Work Fit. We'll see you soon. Take
Likewise,
care.
Dan. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
Dan.
us.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.